Hi, I'm Diane McGarry with Dracut Arts, and with us today we have a special guest, Tom McLaughlin, who is going to be in our January arts events on January 22nd and 23rd. Tom, would you mind introducing him?
Hi, I'm Tom and Gary, also with Dracut Arts, and Furniture Maker Tom McLaughlin is the current host of National Public Television's classic woodworking produced at WGBH in Boston. Beginning with a rare apprenticeship alongside master craftsman P.A. Pug Moore in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Tom has enjoyed making and designing commissioned custom furniture since 1990. Upon returning to his native New England in 1998, Tom was juried into the prestigious New Hampshire Furniture Masters Association, where his work has won numerous awards and became recognized for its dramatic use of figured wood, creating a sense of movement in each piece. And enthusiasm for sharing the craft led Tom to becoming a regular contributor to Fine Woodworking magazine, as well as hosting classes in his Canterbury, New Hampshire workshop. Tom's primary teaching channel these days is online, live streaming weekly presentations and free classes at epicwoodworking.com. Please join Dracut Arts in January to see Tom online Friday, January 22nd and Saturday, January 23rd. Also, Saturday, January 23rd at 2 p.m., join author Grace Toulousan for a live book reading and discussion. This will be followed at 4 p.m. by harpist Pamela Stroher. All of these events are online. Links are available through Meetup and Eventbrite. Check our website, dracutarts.com, for details. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, Tom and Diane. Thanks so much for having me. I actually grew up in Lowell, the next town over, so I'm excited to have a connection back there. I'm about an hour north now in Canterbury, New Hampshire, just nearby the Shaker Village, which inspired this town a lot for fine traditional craft. But I've just been, as you read there, a woodworker for 30 years. I've been making mostly furniture on commission in the Boston and whole East Coast and some Texas and whatever. But it all had been custom commission work. And yeah, and there's my, my mentor. I studied with P.A. Pug Moore in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. My wife and I went down there for almost 8 years. I apprenticed with Pug in his shop and learned the art of making 18th century reproductions, which at first I thought, oh my gosh, this is so boring. This is so old fashioned. And I wasn't drawn to the style at all. I thought I was ready to invent my new form of furniture design, but I learned so much. I mean, just his enthusiasm was contagious. And I started to understand that the principles in furniture design are all there. And that period actually is like the classical music period of furniture design. And so if you study that, I mean, it's all encompassed in that design period for composition, for detail, for use of materials, just extraordinary masters worked at that time. And to think that they did it with so much less in terms of power machinery, it's really impressive. Want me to go on?
Sure, yes.
Well, yeah, so I got into taking on commissions down there in North Carolina after the 3 years with Pug, and he continued to mentor me as needed. And we had 3 children down there in North Carolina. And we loaded up the truck and we moved back to New England, to New Hampshire, to raise our kids closer to family. And I just love the Northeast, all the seasons. The humidity down there was tough on a New Englander. So, but once I got up here, I joined the New Hampshire Furniture Masters, which is a group of about 20, 25 masters. And you can check out the work there. It's I mean, if you're in New England and haven't heard of them, which a lot of people haven't, it is really a treasure. I think the makers in this group are so varied and impressive. But you can check it out at FurnitureMasters.org, and you can click on and see the variety of work there. And so I came up with this traditional 18th century background, and there was only one or two other makers in the group who were working out of that as their kind of their source for the compositions they were creating. And then it was such a nice melting pot of influence there. It was almost like we had our little school of woodworking. So there were some people who were more influenced by contemporary makers and the studio furniture movement, which really took hold in the 50s. And the senior member of the group, Jerry Osgood, was a renowned maker of that studio furniture world. He's well known. He taught at BU, actually taught some of the other members of the Furniture Masters. But so that influenced my direction, and I started exploring more sculptural forms and uses of veneer, and especially veneer, almost using it like paint. So by taking the certain cuts of the material, you can feature a type of figure. Even within one material, you can feature different types of figure and use that veneer by applying it to substrates or whatever in a more dramatic fashion that you couldn't do with solid wood because of the movement issues with solid wood. So, so I have other friends in the group. Right around the corner from me is David Lamb, who is a good friend, and he also worked in a similar background. He had a mentor and 18th century background. So a lot of our work as a result has kind of the structural bones, or it's informed by the 18th century period, but with an obvious contemporary spin where we start to put our own voice to it. So
could you address, you said it has, you need to use a veneer instead of a solid piece of wood because of its movement?
Yeah, like solid wood is always moving seasonally. So it's expanding and contracting. That's why maybe you have a door in your house that sticks in the summer, but is loose in the winter. You know, it's always expanding and contracting with the changes in humidity. So there's a lot of things you can't do with wood if it were solid, but by using the veneer and applying it to a stable substrate, like a ply or some type of plywood or bending ply and things like that, you can actually freeze the material because it's very thin, but you can use it almost like a paint, a veneer. And you can make
I never thought of that. That's really an incredible thing.
Yeah, so a lot of the work that you might see in my more recent work in the last 10, 20 years has that application where I'm combining solids and veneers. And quite a lot I did with Cuban mahogany veneer using the ribbon figure. So you get that radiant appearance on a lot of those pieces you might. I think the first significant one was a sideboard that has like the center section and the two doors have this radiant sunburst on them, and that you just couldn't do that on a solid wood.
Well, we don't have pictures of that, but we do have pictures of some of your other things. So let's show those.
Yeah, so that's a set of chairs, and that does have all the veneer on the back, like the back splat and the crest rail. The way those lines are going vertically is actually that Cuban mahogany veneer.
Yeah, it looks like you carefully selected that piece of wood and that grain, because earlier you said something about it's almost like painting.
Yeah. So there's a little bit, it's harder to see on this one, a radiant pattern. Do you have that sideboard, do you think? Or you say you don't? There's a, I think you might have.
Here we go. This is not cooperating for me. Hold on.
But it's a great group to check out. We're actually just past our 25th anniversary as a group. I've been a member for 23 of those years. So
we have a little bit of radiance here, but this is a different type of thing.
The chairs, you mean?
Yeah, with the way it comes up on the back.
Yeah, the backsplat doesn't show it as well. Did you say you did have other photos of furniture?
Yes, but I don't think you gave me the, wow, that's
cool. The first email had the sideboard photos, I believe, but that's okay.
Well, I put them in order, so we'll get.
Okay.
Diane, I'm still seeing just the two chairs.
Oh, you're not seeing the.
So no, we're just seeing the chairs have been the only ones.
It hasn't moved forward. I wonder why.
There you go.
That's a table.
Now we see a table. Yeah, that's a heavily veneered table. That was a lot of fun with a combination of crotch macore for the base and also the ribbon figure with for the Cuban mahogany around the edge.
Oh wow!
Is it? And did you see this one too?
We've only seen the two.
Yeah, we're still on the table.
Okay.
The table we got, yeah.
I don't know why you're not getting this one. Okay. Do you see this bedstead? This incredible woven bedstead.
Still on the table.
No.
Okay, I'm going to stop and reshare then. Hold on. I don't know why it's not working for me.
But beyond just using materials as a visual element, there's also the other aspect. There you go. We can see that now. A lot of woods can give you a texture like that headboard.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually a chestnut headboard that was made from a reclaimed beam from an old barn.
Oh my God.
We saw the chestnut. Yeah, there you go. And that's all, those are all like individual pieces of veneer that are about almost 1/4 of an inch thick. But they're domed, and then they are wire brushed to bring out the texture between the different growth rings. So you have the softer early
incredibly
growth.
Beautiful.
Yeah, if you could see it right up close, if you can go back to that first picture, you get a little closer look at the headboard. You can almost see the texture to it. So it did appear to be woven, and I just love chestnut. It has that really warm color, and it's just sad that it's not around. They're doing things to try to get it back, but wonderful, wonderful wood.
Yeah,
it's
really
fun to reclaim and use basically what people thought as a trash beam and bring it back to life as a contemporary bed like this.
Wow. I would love a bed like that. And this, are you seeing the dining room set here?
Yes. Yeah, they're moving.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that table is a solid mahogany, the base and that ball, and the top is made of 2 planks. Well, 1 plank, but just 2 boards. So it was just a spectacular plank of mahogany, which you don't seem to see anymore because
people aren't using
that. No, but the chairs are actually, all that is laminate. The top ring is laminate bent, and there was another chair, I don't think I sent you that photo, that fit right into that opening. Wow. So it could be an entirely closed circle.
Wow.
Then you would capture your kids. They could never go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, you have to slide back. It does allow you to slide back a little bit. So this, again, this is from a desk that I made where we had this, using again that's the ribbon figure of the mahogany, and that's a veneer, and those 3 panels there are actually in a slightly different plane by about 1/8 of an inch.
Wow.
So there's different levels when you see the furniture too. And then that black line is an ebony line marking kind of the change in elevation, and it also is a curved front of that desk. So yeah, there you go.
Oh wow.
So it's interesting that the client, a woman, saw a an easy chair that I had made with a similar design. And I said, and she said, could this be made as a desk for my husband? It's his 60th birthday. I want to surprise him. And he was a successful contractor, you know, kind of like a burly guy. And I was thinking, oh no, this might look too feminine, this desk. And
Yes?
I was trying to think of a way. I thought maybe it's going to look too feminine. He won't like it, because it was a total surprise for his birthday. So after, when I was showing it to someone else, they said, hey, you know, that actually looks like muscle. Like, so like if you took the skin off, I said, okay, that's a good way to talk about it. I said, a muscular desk. So I felt much better with the surprise, and he actually loved it. So
cool.
Nothing to worry about.
As you show these pieces, I keep having kind of the same reaction, that it's like elegant and understated, you know, not really flashy, but the more you look at it, the more detail there is to notice and appreciate. So I don't know if that's what you're going for, but that's my personal reaction.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, a lot of fine furniture, you tend to make discoveries after, like, especially like, I know a lot of the furniture masters, that's something we enjoy. Like when you slide open even these drawers, you'll see like always hand cut dovetails, you know, nice little crisp, clean joinery all throughout. This piece, what I tried to do here was go off the norm of how you would see a chest of drawers. So instead of seeing those horizontal lines or dividers, the solid wood breaking up the drawer front, I wanted to have a solid sheet to actually use as a palette to use various woods to create this kind of dynamic presentation. So, the dividers are actually hidden, and the drawer overlaps to create a solid form. But that those fronts are curved, and they're laminated, and they're also in different planes. So it's got a terraced kind of look, just like that other desk, with the ebony dividing.
So are the drawers terraced too, or just the top 4 and the bottom 3?
The top 4 are all in, it's like as if it's a smooth surface with just those lines. You can just see where they break.
Yeah.
But the veneer, it was all made on one sheet, and then I had to saw those apart, and those became applied for the drawer fronts. Wow. So it was a little, it can be nerve-wracking when you have that much invested in something and then you have to cut it up.
Well, I love the design too. Did you design how the handmade would be?
Yeah, a client came to me. They wanted a really nice chest of drawers, and I had this all figured out. I was going to make that base unit, and then they said, well, we'd like it to be, I think it was like 66 inches high or something like that. And I thought, oh gosh, I said, I can't use this. I'm going to have to build a chest on chest, which was a common theme like back in the 18th century. So I had to come up with a new design to relate well to the base. And I gave them like 3 or 4 options, sketches, and they chose this one. So yeah, it's kind of Art Deco in its application too. I have Ambonia burl in that top area, like on those very top 2 drawers. It's kind of like a speckled burly, lighter kind of pattern. And then the crest or the crown molding at the top is also veneered with that burl. And then it's just a lot of that Cuban mahogany ribbon and crotch macquarie in the middle. And then there's a carved fan at the bottom, because this actually,
I see that.
Along with the bed, I made a similar bed for them that had a headboard and footboard in a similar, it was related, but not exactly the same. Yeah.
Wow. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love your work. So how did you decide to get into woodworking, really?
Oh man, it was kind of a circuitous journey for me, because I loved working in the basement as a kid. You know, living in the city, we had you know, it's one of those narrow to the road tenement houses in Lowell, Mass, and our basement was mostly dirt floor, but there was a bench down there, and there were some woodworking tools that I would play around with. And And then I actually went to a vocational school for my first 2 years of high school and entered the carpentry program. But that was kind of hard on my parents because my older 3 siblings had gone the college route, and they wanted us to go to college, and we did fine and all, but there was something just about my whole personality just didn't, not rebellious, but I just didn't want to sit at a desk and do that whole thing my life. I just knew I needed to get out and do something different off the grid. So so I ended up getting into pursuing it. I had a number of jobs in my early 20s, like sales jobs. And I actually thought I was going into the ministry. I went to seminary for a few years, and then it ended up all coming back full circle to deciding to work with my hands and be an artist. I've always loved art. Even when I was in college, I went and got a math degree at the University of Lowell, back when it was called that. I was always taking for my electives art courses on the South Campus, and most engineers or the North Campus technology side of the river did not go over to the South artsy side much. But I guess I enjoyed it. I liked going over there, and I took quite a few art courses, and so it was always in me to pursue something like this. So, but my medium.
Tom, what kind of art courses did you take?
I took a lot of, I took watercolor and some other drawing courses, and it was mostly like that. But I didn't feel like that was my medium either. But there was something about the warmth and beauty of wood. I mean, I just have, I love the whole thing. We live in this beautiful, like, rolling country of, I'm looking out my shop windows to the backyard. It's just gorgeous country, like you'd expect in New England, with the stone walls and the wooded. And so just the whole thing, from the trees to the boards to actually being a viable material to create art with. But it's also practical. I love the history, the way it weaves into people's lives. It becomes sentimental, makes beautiful gifts, and that people gather around and live their life around, so I love that aspect of it too.
It's interesting because watercolors and drawing work a lot with the visual texture, and that's what you're working with the veneers too.
Right. Yeah. And in math, my favorite top subject was geometry. I love spatial thinking, so it was all kind of feeding in. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but it's so involved in thinking spatially and visualizing a new design. It sort of comes naturally to me. But
so how did you meet Pug?
Oh gosh, I met him, a friend of mine, actually from the seminary days. Introduced me to his father, who took me around Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and I met quite a few craftsmen, but Pug he was sort of legendary in that area. He was 73 years old when I started working with him, and he had been involved in a shop for over 50 years. His father started it. So he was just such a warm person too, like had a lot of integrity. You could tell everybody loved him, but he was a kind, but a great woodworker and furniture designer. So we really clicked, even though we were, 45 years apart in age. We had a very symbiotic feeling about, appreciating the craft of woodworking. So it just worked out at the perfect time. He had no daughters, and I never knew my grandfathers. They both passed away too early. And one was actually a police officer in Lowell who was killed. It's still an unsolved thing. It's a big thing in Lowell back in 1957, George Pearsall. And, but that was before I was born. So it was like almost a gift from God, you know, that we got brought together at that time. You know, he was a grandfatherly figure to me, and I was like a grandson that kind of filled a void for him. So, and the fact that we related so well and enjoyed the craft, those were some of the best days I can remember in the shop. You know, it was just such a beautiful relationship, and I learned so much from him.
Do you have any apprentices or just regular students or anything like that?
I have had apprentices over the years, probably, well, I know it's been like 10 years of the time here in the shop creating custom furniture. I've had an apprentice with me, but currently, no. I'm now teaching primarily, so I'm always creating content for that. So in a sense, I have thousands of apprentices.
Wow.
Or not, but I don't ever feel like it because a lot of the teaching we do is online. Yeah. So my wife, Chris, who actually shoots the video, she's known as the camera lady, affectionately, and she shoots the video, and we do these live streams every Thursday night. In addition to courses online, we actually have been doing free courses during this whole COVID virus thing, and that's been a huge. We just had a live stream last night. We just had just about 700 people watching live. It's kind of strange. So even though there's a lot of people watching, it's just the camera lady and me, Chris, and we have a good time. But it's so I always feel like I'm just talking to one person though that way, and
it's an awkward medium.
I enjoy, but I feel joy in doing it. There was something that clicked in me about 5 years ago. I just started to feel the making original work was isolating. You know, I would make these intense pieces, and for the most part, you're alone in your shop, and that life of an artist is wonderful at times, but there was something about it. It just started to feel more isolating. So I would make this beautiful piece. I would work so long on, get a good photograph of it, and then deliver it to a client's home. And that was it. And then I'd go back and I'd start something else. And so you felt like all your energy, it was beautiful and fun, but I just felt this kind of voice wanted me to open my doors and let people come on in, and people would come on in. It's sort of like, if you build it, they will come, right? Open the doors, they'll come in. But, you know, I've been virtually opening the doors, and people have been coming. And then I also had this, by hosting the classic woodworking on GBH. That was a crazy gift to us. I'm not sure, we're working on the funding for the next season, so everything's been thrown in a loop with this. But that's been a blast too, because we actually hosted. That was filmed right in this shop, right? This is my tool cabinet on the series. So it was very comfortable for me to be in my own space and have these, you know, professional producers and the production team. And it was so much fun to do that. So I hope we're going to do more of that.
Well, I hate to cut you off, but we're running out of time. And it's been so nice to see your work and to hear about furniture making from you and the whole beauty of the art form. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Diane, Tom. It's great to be with you.
Please join us on Friday, January 22nd through 23rd, where we will highlight Tom's furniture making on our website, dracutarts.com. You can find out about all our performances and arts events right there. Thank you so much for joining us today.